My parents gave my sister my dream job recommendation saying you're not professional enough. 6 months later, her boss called me and said we have to talk about her resume. My name is Rowan, I'm 34 now, and for as long as I can remember, I've been working toward one goal: to become a senior curator at the Detroit Institute of Arts. It was a dream shaped over years. I studied art history at the University of Michigan, pushed myself through a cruel master's program, interned in Florence cataloging Renaissance sculpture, and even co-authored a niche journal piece on Baroque restoration techniques. I didn't network at parties or ride on connections, I built my resume from the ground up. My parents, Margaret and Ron, had a different view of success. They liked shiny things. Quick results. Public approval. I love them, but they've always valued appearance over depth, even in their kids. My younger sister, Sabrina, was their darling. She's always been effortlessly likable, someone who walks into a room and everyone turns to greet her. But she never really stuck with anything. She bounced from one ambition to the next, and my parents always smoothed the road beneath her. When she first started talking about the art world, I assumed it was just another phase. She watched a Netflix documentary about high-profile art theft and decided, suddenly, that she was meant to work with galleries. I remember her quoting some curator from the show and saying, "That's what I want. Something that feels important." I didn't take it seriously until I realized my parents did. When the position at the museum opened up, I knew it was my shot. This role didn't come around often. The curator who retired had been there 20 years. I poured everything into that application, writing samples, curated project outlines, published papers, and recommendations from respected peers. There was one crucial recommendation left. Genevieve, the museum's director of collections, had known my family since I was a teenager. She had mentored me informally for years and had offered, once, to put in a word for me when the time came. That time was now. My parents were having dinner with her the following week. I asked them, nervously, to bring me up. To say they supported me. They promised they would. I got my rejection email 2 weeks later. Genevieve's message was polite, but cold. "We appreciate your interest. Unfortunately, we're moving forward with another candidate." Some concerns were raised about cultural fit and professional demeanor. Cultural fit? Professional demeanor? I was stunned. My references had never hinted at anything like that. And then, Sabrina posted on Instagram a photo of her in the museum's archives, wearing gloves and holding a painting. The caption said, "Manifesting works. Senior curator, baby." I couldn't believe it. It was my position. The same one I had applied for. I confronted my parents that night. My mom didn't even blink. "You're brilliant, Rowan, but they needed someone who could represent the institution publicly. Sabrina is more polished. More adaptable. She doesn't even know the difference between mannerism and rococo," I said, my voice shaking. My dad shrugged. They wanted a people person. It felt like the ground dropped beneath me. I didn't talk to them after that. I couldn't. I left Detroit and moved to Madison, Wisconsin. I didn't have a plan, but I couldn't stay in that city, walking past the museum that should have been mine. I took a teaching job at a small college and did freelance cataloging for private collectors. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it helped me feel useful again. 6 months passed. Then I got the call. "Hi, is this Rowan Bishop?" The voice was clipped, older, a little weary. "Yes? This is Daniel Cross. I'm the director at the museum in Detroit. We need to talk about your sister's resume." My stomach turned. He continued. "We're conducting an internal audit and discovered some inconsistencies. The Florence internship, she claimed that experience. But the university confirmed it was yours. Same with the journal article on restoration techniques." I felt frozen. The very things I had built over 10 years, my sister had taken them, word for word, and claimed them as her own. He paused. Did you know about this? No, I said quietly. She's been underperforming. It's becoming impossible to ignore. There was an incident with a donor. She misattributed a piece as 18th century Dutch when it was clearly German Romanticism. It was embarrassing. He was careful with his words, but the message was clear: Sabrina was in over her head. And now they were turning to me. He asked if I would consider helping out. Just on a consulting basis at first, cleaning up the archives, helping sort through the backlog Sabrina had misfiled. I told him I needed to think. I sat with it for a few days. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Tired of being the one who followed the rules while everyone else skipped the line. When Sabrina found out I'd been contacted, she messaged me. Then called. You can't take that job, she said. Her voice was small. They'll fire me. I didn't make you lie on your resume, I said. I just wanted a chance, Rowan. You always had everything figured out. I thought if I could just get in, I'd learn on the job. But you didn't, I said. Silence. Please don't do this. It was the first time in my life I'd heard her sound scared. But she wasn't scared for me. Just for herself. The line went quiet after Sabrina's last words. Please don't do this. She said it like I was doing something cruel. Like I was the one stealing something. I didn't respond. I didn't owe her a reaction. I hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning, I emailed Daniel. I told him I'd consult, for now. I made it clear I wouldn't be involved in any discussions regarding disciplinary action for Sabrina. I just wanted to do the job I had worked a decade to earn. Quietly. Competently. With no drama. He replied within the hour. They needed help immediately, and he said, in his words, it would be an honor to have someone with your credentials on board. That part stung a little. Now it was an honor. Walking back into the Detroit Institute of Arts was surreal. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. The marble floors I used to admire now felt cold. The security guards still greeted me like they always had, except this time, they didn't ask if I was visiting. They buzzed me through the back without question. Sabrina wasn't there when I arrived. According to Daniel, she had taken a personal day. My first task was the European Wing archive. Files were everywhere, misplaced, mislabeled, in some cases completely missing. She had logged a 17th century Flemish still life as postmodern abstract. The inventory dates were inconsistent, and half the works had incorrect provenance notes. I worked 12-hour days that first week. I didn't see her at all. But her presence was everywhere, on signs with her name, in memos she had signed, in the chaos she'd left behind. She'd written curatorial notes in pink gel pen. I stared at one for a long time, trying to process the sheer absurdity of it. She had no idea what she was doing. By the second week, people began noticing. Technicians stopped by to thank me quietly. Interns asked real questions about cataloging that Sabrina hadn't been able to answer. One woman in the development department told me, "I'm just glad you're here." It was starting to feel like the whole place was slipping. Danielle stopped me in the hallway one afternoon. "Whatever happens with your sister, I want you to know this place needs you." I nodded, unsure of how to respond. I wasn't here to replace her. I was just here to fix what she couldn't. I didn't hear from Sabrina again for almost a month. Then one day, I stepped into the staff break room, and there she was. She was standing by the coffee machine, staring down into her mug like it might give her answers. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile. Her hair, usually immaculate, was tied back in a lazy, uneven bun. When she saw me, she froze. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. Then she said, without looking up, "I know they're going to fire me." I said nothing. "I messed everything up," she added, almost to herself. "I thought if I could just fake it for a little while, I'd catch up." She finally turned to look at me. "But this job isn't what I thought it would be. It's hard." It's not just posing next to art and writing captions. I felt something strange then. Not pity. Not vindication. Something else, like standing at the edge of a cliff where everything that mattered had already fallen. I tried telling you that, I said softly. 4 years. She swallowed hard. I know. I could see it in her eyes, she really did know now. What this work took. What it meant to commit to something deeply, to build it from the ground up. She set her mug down and walked past me, brushing my arm with hers as she passed. It wasn't a truce. It was just a moment. 2 days later, HR sent out a quiet internal memo. Sabrina had resigned. No big announcement. No farewell party. Just a silent clearing away of her name from plaques and email signatures. I didn't see her before she left. No goodbye, no apology. Just absence. I came into work the next morning and her office was already half empty. A few leftover things sat on the desk, a scarf, a half-used candle, a single earring. The kind of things that look like they were left behind by accident, but really weren't. People didn't talk about it much. They just moved on. Museum life is like that, art lasts, but the people behind it come and go. Daniel pulled me aside again a week later. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We want you in that position. Permanently. We'll make it official in the next cycle, but I'd like to start onboarding you as lead curator now. My hand shook a little as I thanked him. Not from nerves. From the strange, quiet weight of finally being seen. Back home, my phone buzzed with messages from old friends, former professors, people I hadn't heard from in years. Congratulations. So proud of you. Knew you'd make it. I didn't respond to most of them. I sat in my apartment that night, in silence, the museum's offer letter open on my laptop. And I thought of the girl I used to be, the one who interned in Florence, who lived off espresso and hope, who spent long nights translating dusty catalogs and dreaming of this moment. It hadn't come the way I expected. But it had come. The museum named me acting senior curator officially 2 months after Sabrina's resignation. The title didn't feel like a victory. It felt complicated. I was finally in the place I belonged, but I had to walk through ash and smoke to get there. The first time I saw my parents after everything was at my Aunt Ray's 70th birthday. It was a family affair, the kind of gathering you can't politely avoid without becoming the subject of whispered conversations for the next 5 years. I hadn't spoken to them since the day I learned they had chosen Sabrina over me. Since the day I realized they had looked me in the eye and told someone else I wasn't good enough. They were already there when I arrived. My dad stood by the drinks table in his usual posture, one hand in his pocket, the other nursing a glass of bourbon he didn't even like. My mom was floating through the crowd in her practiced way, offering compliments that felt just slightly too shiny to be real. When she saw me, her smile didn't falter. "Rowan," she said like we had spoken yesterday, like there hadn't been months of cold silence between us. "You look so well." "Thanks," I said. I didn't hug her. Dad approached next. His greeting was even more casual. "Hey, kiddo. Still doing the art stuff?" "The art stuff is literally my job," I said flatly. He gave a soft chuckle like I was joking. The tension between us wasn't loud or public. It hung in the room like humidity, unseen but clinging to everything. Later, I found myself cornered near the hors d'oeuvres table with my mom. She picked up a mini quiche, stared at it for a second, then set it down. "We didn't know she'd take it that far," she said quietly. "With your resume." I turned to look at her. "But you knew she wasn't qualified." She said you wouldn't mind. That you didn't want the job anymore. That you were tired of fighting for it. I stared at her, stunned. "You believed her?" "She's persuasive. And we thought maybe you'd moved on." "You never talk about your work when you're home." "I don't talk about my work," I said, voice barely above a whisper, "because no one ever asked." Her face faltered then. Just a flicker. A crack in the polished mask she always wore. I thought we were supporting our daughter, she said. I didn't realize we were hurting the other. The sentence sat between us like a weight. I didn't know what to say to her. I still don't. After the party, I drove home in silence. The radio was off, the roads were wet from a recent rain, and everything felt heavy. It was strange, how even after getting the job, after being validated by people who saw my work and respected it, I still felt like I was chasing something that never wanted to be caught. Not success. Not recognition. Just peace. And family. Not the holiday card, smiling over a casserole kind of family. But the kind that shows up for you when it matters. The kind that sees your worth without you having to prove it. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. A real one. Handwritten, in my sister's loopy, high school-era cursive. It was 3 pages long. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't make excuses. She told me that she had applied to grad school, real programs this time. She wanted to study art history, the right way. She said she had started taking an online Latin course because apparently, that's important for reading old stuff. She said she was sorry. Over and over, in different words. But what struck me most wasn't the apology. It was the admission, I think I wanted to be you more than I wanted to be myself. I'm trying to figure out the difference now. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know how. Forgiveness wasn't something I could write in a single letter or offer like a spare key. It was something I had to find space for. And that space wasn't there yet. Back at the museum, life took on a quiet rhythm. I spent my mornings reviewing exhibit proposals, afternoons overseeing restoration projects, and evenings consulting with local schools for community outreach. It was the job I had imagined, and more. Harder, yes. Lonelier, sometimes. But it was mine. No one handed it to me. No one cleared a path. I built it from the bottom. And slowly, I started to feel the heaviness lift. Not because everything was okay. But because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. There were people who respected my work. Colleagues who checked in, who valued my opinion. Students who asked questions that made me think differently. Even Daniel, who once viewed me as an outsider, began referring to me in meetings as our cornerstone. I haven't spoken to Sabrina again, not beyond that letter. But I've heard from our cousin that she moved to Chicago, started auditing night classes at the Art Institute. It's strange. She's walking the road now, the long, slow, winding one. The one I took. The one that doesn't come with shortcuts or hashtags. And a part of me hopes she makes it. Because if she's really willing to do the work, to earn what she once stole, then maybe she deserves a chance. Not because of who she is. But because of who she's trying to become. About 4 months into my new role, I was invited to a private dinner hosted by one of the museum's most influential board members, a woman named Evelyn Harrow. If you know Detroit's arts scene, you've heard of her, philanthropist, patron, former gallery owner, and someone who could make or break a curator's future with a single recommendation. The dinner was formal but intimate. Just 8 of us around a long oak table at her Grosse Pointe estate, surrounded by art worth more than my condo. We were between the salad and main course when she turned to me. "Rowan," she said, folding her napkin, "I've wanted to speak to you for some time." My heart thudded. She wasn't someone who made casual small talk. "I assume you know I was consulted during the hiring process for your position." I nodded carefully. "I want to tell you something," she said. "Because I regret staying silent for as long as I did." Everyone else at the table had quieted. "Your parents spoke to me," she continued, "before the final decision was made. They didn't just recommend Sabrina. They actively campaigned against you." Her eyes didn't blink. "They said you were difficult. That you'd make the staff uncomfortable. That you were too emotional, too intense, too academic. They used words like rigid and unapproachable. It was like being punched without moving. I didn't realize at the time," she added. They weren't being objective. They were being protective of the wrong daughter. I sat there, unsure what to say. They cost you that first offer, she said bluntly. But you got here anyway. And you've more than proven yourself. In fact, I was the one who pushed for the review that exposed the discrepancies in Sabrina's resume. I blinked. You? I had suspicions. I'd been in this world long enough to spot a facade. And she, Sabrina, had no roots in the work. It was all decoration. She paused, then smiled slightly. You, on the other hand, are the work. There it was. Not a speech. Not vengeance shouted from rooftops. Just the truth. And someone powerful enough to say it, finally confirming what I'd known all along. The board offered me a 5-year contract the following quarter, one of the youngest curators in the museum's history to secure that level of tenure. I was also invited to join the city's cultural council, a position Sabrina had openly coveted before everything unraveled. In the email chain welcoming me, one line from the board chair stood out: "We're proud to have someone of Rowan Bishop's caliber shaping the future of the city's art scene." I saved that message. Printed it, even. Not to gloat. But to remember that quiet, earned victories often echo the longest. Word got back to my parents through extended family. About the board contract. The advisory council. The awards I'd started receiving. The articles that featured my exhibits. The university that invited me back as a guest lecturer. My mother sent a card, just a card. No return address, no phone call. Inside, one line: "I suppose we chose wrong." No sorry. No explanation. Just 7 cold words. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. But the final, most poetic turn came quietly, almost like a reward the universe offered without me asking. At a private event hosted by the museum a year later, I was introduced to a guest, Dr. Marlo Keating, Director of Acquisitions for the Smithsonian's American Art Museum. After we chatted about contemporary conservation techniques and the recent digital archiving movement, he asked me something that made my stomach flip. I came across a thesis in the archives recently. Restoration ethics in early Baroque altarpieces. Brilliant work. Was that yours? I smiled. Yes. It was. He grinned. Ever thought about DC? I'd love to bring someone like you in as a visiting scholar. It wasn't a job offer. Not yet. But it was a door. The kind of door that never opened for people who stole credit and smiled their way through unearned roles. Sabrina had posed. I had built. And now the world was noticing. The last time I saw her, really saw her, was in Chicago, maybe 8 months after that card from my mom. I was speaking at a regional conference hosted by the School of the Art Institute. Afterward, I stopped into a small independent gallery nearby, just to browse. She was there. She didn't see me at first. She was helping a guest near the back, holding a clipboard, explaining a mixed media piece in her soft voice. When she turned and spotted me, her face went still. But she didn't leave. She walked over. "Hey," she said, quietly. "I heard about the Detroit contract." "And DC?" I nodded. "Yeah. It's been a good year." There was no bitterness in her voice. Just something like resignation. "I'm working here part-time," she said. "Taking classes. Learning the stuff I skipped." There was a pause. One of those moments where two people acknowledge everything they've done to each other without saying it out loud. "I was really lost," she added. "And I'm sorry. Not just for taking your work. For not respecting it. I thought it was easy, what you did. But it's not. It's deep. It's discipline." It wasn't a grand apology. But it was real. And in that moment, I felt something unexpected: peace. She hadn't landed in a pile of consequences. She wasn't disgraced or destroyed. She was rebuilding. From the bottom. just like I had. Only this time, she wasn't standing on top of my work to do it. And that, I realized, was the best revenge of all. Not watching someone fall, but rising so far beyond them that their betrayal can't even touch you anymore.